Can I ask y'all a question? Do y'all know if these are just court-appointed attorneys? Because both of them is weird as hell. I mean, do y'all know that? Family, what it do? It's your girl Tamika and I am back, Jack. All right, we finna get into this last part.
On the ride out to Ipswich.
Are aware that I believe Tashiana Davis and Shannon Harris on the 15th.
Yes.
And you interviewed Najeen Rushing on the 29th. Correct?
I haven't looked at that date, but I trust that that's the 29th.
Okay. Did you interview any of his other girlfriends?
Yes.
Okay. Which girlfriends did you interview?
I interviewed Kizzy Young.
Okay.
There's Tashiana Davis.
Okay.
Angela, and I just cannot remember her last name at the moment, but she is who he resides with on Wilshire.
Okay.
Who the f*** is Angela? Oh shit, hold on one second. My bad. Who the f*** is Angela? So this nigga did have a wife too? This nigga did have a wife too. Hold on for a second. This motherfucker was more than sick. This nigga said, who the fuck is Kizzy? Who the fuck is Kizzy? Who the fuck is Angela? Nigga, we've been talking about Natasha. We've been talking about, yo, this nigga was a sick. Bro, you would think that this nigga had no women in his life the way he was talking to this little girl, shawty. So, nigga, he was talking to this little girl non-stop, shawty. Like, how in the f*** did not 1, 2, 3 women not understand what the fuck was going on, shawty? There's just no way, shawty. Y'all, this is crazy as hell. I'm trying so hard not to have a drink, but y'all niggas about to make me drink. What channel are you watching so I can watch some of the parts I've been missing back on playback? Love Her Music. I'll put them all in the Discord if you give me moments to throw it up in there, motherfucker, bro. I swear I get it for you because you can't miss not one part on this shit. All right, let me play this because this nigga got mad.
So you're the OIC on this case, correct?
Yes, sir.
When were you first designated as the OIC on this case?
Would have been, I believe, the 15th or 16th of February.
Okay. And what are your duties as OIC on this case?
The OIC began.
He really had a bitch living with him on Wilshire. I swear to God, I thought Wilshire was made up like a motherfucker, bro. What is who to this case? The detective that's on the stand? She the detective. She the one that just got finished reading all of the text messages and all of that shit.
The preliminary investigation overlooking the case on a missing person case. We're obviously making contact with family and getting some witness interviews. We also prep a warrant request that's submitted to the prosecutor.
Okay. So you're responsible for collecting evidence?
Yes.
And you're responsible for coordinating the evidence?
Correct.
Okay. You conduct interviews, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, you conducted several interviews in this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You submit evidence for testing, correct?
Pardon me?
You submit evidence for testing?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And I've seen the prosecution refer to you to make sure they haven't missed anything, correct?
What was your question?
The prosecution has referred back to you to make sure they haven't missed anything, correct?
Correct.
So you're the person that makes sure everything in the file is together, correct?
Correct.
And you interviewed several of Mr. Butts' girlfriends, correct?
Yes.
You interviewed, I believe, Tashiana Davis and Shannon Harris on the 15th.
Yes.
And you interviewed Najeen Rushing on the 29th. correct?
I haven't looked at that date, but I trust that that's the 29th.
Okay. Did you interview any of his other girlfriends?
Yes.
Okay, which girlfriends did you interview?
I interviewed Kizzy Young.
Okay.
There's Tashiana Davis.
Okay.
Angela, and I just cannot remember her last name at the moment, but she is who he resides with on Wilshire.
Okay.
I attempted to make a phone call to another girlfriend. I'd have to look up my reports, but she never came in for an interview.
All right.
There is another girlfriend who her name is Lucretia Bryant Hauser.
Okay.
That may be all the girlfriends. I may be missing one. I would have to relook at all the witness statements.
So you are aware that Mr. Butch has quite a few girlfriends, correct?
Correct.
All right. And from the very beginning of this case, you suspected, from your beginning of the case, you suspected Jarvis Butch had something to do with Nazyiah being missing, correct?
Well, when we were discussing the case on the first day, February 12th, DPS had told us the last person that they had contact with, and they identified as Jarvis Butch. And then on February 15th, when we verified that Nazyiah was in fact with him and Cordell on the ride out to Ypsilanti, which is the last day that she was seen, then he became the primary suspect.
Okay. And from the beginning, you didn't suspect this was a missing person case, correct?
Well, she's missing. It's been a missing person case. I don't understand your question, I guess.
So you suspect that she was deceased, correct?
I didn't expect that she's deceased from day one. It takes a lot of investigation before you can come to that conclusion.
Okay.
It's not going to be one of those right away. You have to rule out every other possibility.
All right. Didn't you tell Shannon Harris in her interview on the 15th that this is not a missing person case at this point?
I believe I told her that it was not being handled by DPS as a missing person case at that point, and that it's being handled at Detroit Police Homicide Missing Persons.
So you didn't tell her that this was not a missing person case? We're no longer looking for a missing person?
I don't believe that would have been my exact wording.
Okay.
On February 15th?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't believe that would have been my wording, that I would have already come to some conclusion that she was deceased on the 15th.
Okay. Now, during your investigation, did you receive information that Nazyiah had thought about running away?
Yes.
Okay. Also, during your investigation, did you receive information about a potential sex trafficking ring?
There was several different leads or tips that come in about sex trafficking rings. All those were investigated.
Okay. Now, you interviewed my client, you yourself, with, I believe your partner was Sergeant Lynch, is his name?
Sergeant Sullivan?
Sergeant Sullivan, I'm sorry.
Yes.
You interviewed my client 3 times, correct?
A minimum, I believe, one the 31st, the 1st, and I believe we went back again
July
possibly
20th? July 20th?
That sounds about right.
Okay. And you interviewed him 3.5 hours, May 31st, correct?
Is that the time on the recording? Then
Yes.
Okay.
An hour and a half, the second time, correct?
Correct.
And roughly 45 minutes, I believe it was like 38 and some change, the third time.
Okay.
So you interviewed him for close to 6 hours?
That could be true.
Okay. And you took statements from my client, correct?
I mean, we recorded the interview.
Okay. You didn't reduce anything to writing, correct?
No.
He never signed anything, correct?
But he signed his advice of right.
Signed advice of right, but he never looked at what he had told you or what your conversation was, correct?
I mean, he verbally acknowledged things throughout the investigation. I did not reduce it down to handwriting.
And your conversation that you had with him, for lack of a better term, was rather fluid, correct?
Was what?
It was rather fluid.
It's a conversation.
There was a back and forth conversation where both you and your partner were talking, and he was just talking back, correct?
A conversation between the three of us?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And you told him that you wanted to tell his side of his story, correct?
Correct.
He did tell you that he was joking about the messages he sent, correct?
The initial messages?
Yes.
So in the very beginning of the interview, he starts off where he denies that that was her. He claimed that he was sending them to his child's mother.
Can I ask y'all a question? Do y'all know if these are just court-appointed attorneys? Because both of them is weird as hell. I mean, do y'all know that?
It then turned into that he was just joking around with Nazyiah for entertainment purposes.
Okay.
Then he admits to that all the messages were in fact to Nazyiah and not to Shannon, because he could never tell that wasn't Shannon talking as you went through the rest of the messages.
But he told you that. Sorry, just one moment.
Boy, if you don't go.
Okay. All right.
The defendant actually had the nerve to say that he couldn't tell if it was Nazyiah or Shannon texting. Nigga, it's text message saying Shan on her way upstairs. Nigga, you stupid? It's message you saying of Nazyiah saying Shan coming up there to get some dick, and you saying this your dick. So who you talking to then? The grandma? You fucking the grandma? This nigga is dumb as hell. I don't even gotta rewind it all the way to know that it's dummy. Where I gotta go back to, bro? Come on, don't make me go through it. Go back where? How far? The fuck, man? Trying to escape this shit.
You're responsible for collecting?
On a missing person.
Good afternoon, Sergeant Jones.
Good afternoon.
So you're the OIC on this case, correct?
Yes, sir.
When were you first designated as the OIC on this case?
Would have been, I believe, the 15th or 16th of February.
Okay. And what are your duties as OIC on this case?
The OIC begins with the preliminary investigation overlooking the case. On a missing person case, we're obviously making contact with family and getting some witness interviews. We also prep a warrant request that's submitted to the prosecutor.
Okay. So you're responsible for collecting evidence?
Yes.
And you're responsible for coordinating the evidence?
Correct.
Okay. You conduct interviews, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, you conducted several interviews in this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You submit evidence for testing, correct?
Pardon me?
You submit evidence for testing?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And I've seen the prosecution refer to you to make sure they haven't missed anything, correct?
What was your question?
The prosecution has referred back to you to make sure they
We went back because I wasn't in the room and they said to go back. So that's why we went back.
haven't missed anything, correct?
Correct.
So you're the person that makes sure everything in the file is together, correct?
Correct.
And you interviewed several of Mr. Butts' girlfriends, correct?
Yes.
You interviewed, I believe, Tashiana Davis and Shannon Harris on the 15th.
Yes.
And you interviewed Najeen Rushing on the 29th, correct?
I haven't looked at that date, but I trust that that's the 29th.
Okay. Did you interview any of his other girlfriends?
Yes.
Okay. Which girlfriends did you interview?
I interviewed Kizzy Young.
Okay.
There's Tashiana Davis.
Okay.
Angela, and I just cannot remember her last name at the moment, but she is who he resides with on Wilshire.
Okay.
I attempted to make a phone call to another girlfriend. I'd have to look up my reports, but she never came in for an interview.
All right.
There is another girlfriend who her name is Lucretia Bryant Hauser.
Okay.
That may be all the girlfriends. I may be missing one. I would have to relook at all the witness statements.
So you are aware that Mr. Butts has quite a few girlfriends, correct?
Correct.
All right.
I hope they all went and got
And-
checked out.
From the very beginning of this case, you suspected, from your beginning of the case, you suspected Jarvis Butts had something to do with Nazyiah being missing, correct?
Well, when we were discussing the case on the first day, February 12th, DPS had told us the last person that they had contact with and they identified as Jarvis Butts. And then on February 15th, when we verified that Nazyiah was in fact with him and Cordell on the ride out to Ypsilanti, which is the last day that she was seen, then he became the primary suspect.
Okay. And from the beginning, you didn't suspect this was a missing person case, correct?
Well, she's missing. It's been a missing person case. I don't understand your question, I guess.
So you suspect that she was deceased, correct?
I didn't expect that she's deceased from day one. It takes a lot of investigation before you can come to that conclusion.
Okay.
This nigga got his
It's not going to be one of those
his
right
lawyer license
away.
at
You have to
McDonald's.
rule out every other possibility.
All right. Didn't you tell Shannon Harris in her interview on the 15th that this is not a missing person case at this point?
I believe I told her that it was not being handled by DPS as a missing person case at that point, and that it's being handled at Detroit Police Homicide Missing Persons.
So you didn't tell her that this was not a missing person case? We're no longer looking for a missing person?
I don't believe that would have been my exact wording.
Okay.
On February 15th,
Yes.
Nigga, on February 15th, I could tell you she wouldn't have said that because we didn't know what was going on then. Yeah, they had just got the case from the other milk dud ass nigga.
yeah, I don't believe that would have been my wording. That
I don't
I would have
believe it
already
either.
come to some conclusion that she was deceased on the 15th.
Okay. Now, during your
Fun
investigation,
facts.
did you receive information that Nazyiah had thought about running away?
Yes.
Okay. Also, during your investigation, did you receive information about a potential sex trafficking ring?
There was several different leads or tips that come in about sex trafficking rings. All those were investigated.
Okay. Now, you interviewed my client, you yourself, with, I believe your partner was Sergeant Lynch, is his name?
Sergeant Sullivan?
Sergeant Sullivan, I'm sorry.
Yes.
You interviewed my client 3 times, correct?
A minimum, I believe, one the 31st, the 1st, and I believe we went back again
July
possibly.
20th? July 20th?
That sounds about right.
Okay. And you interviewed him 3.5 hours, May 31st, correct?
Is that the time on the recording? Then
Yes.
Okay.
An hour and a half, the second time, correct?
Correct.
And roughly 45 minutes, I believe it was like 38 and some change, the third time.
Okay.
So you interviewed him for close to 6 hours?
That could be true.
Okay. And you took statements from my client, correct?
I mean, we recorded the interview.
Okay. You didn't reduce anything to writing, correct?
No.
He never signed anything,
But
correct?
he signed his advice of rights.
Signed advice of right, but he never looked at what he had told you or what your conversation was, correct?
I mean, he verbally acknowledged things throughout the investigation. I did not reduce it down to handwriting.
And your conversation that you had with him, for lack of a good term, was rather fluid, correct?
Was what?
It was rather fluid.
It's a conversation.
There was a back and forth conversation where both you and your partner were talking, and he was just talking back, correct?
A conversation between the three of us?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And you told him that you wanted to tell his side of his story, correct?
Correct.
He did tell you that he was joking about the messages he sent, correct?
The initial messages,
Yes.
so in the very beginning of the interview, he starts off where he denies that that was her. He claimed that he was sending them to his child's mother. It then turned into that he was just joking around with Nazyiah for entertainment purposes.
Okay.
Then he admits to that all the messages were in fact to Nazyiah and not to Shannon, because he could never tell that that wasn't Shannon talking as you went through the rest of the messages.
But he told you that. Just one moment. Okay. All right. So throughout your 3 conversations, your 6 hours of conversations with them, he never acknowledged harming her, did he?
I don't believe I ever asked him that direct question. He had never acknowledged having sex or touching. That was asked multiple times of whether there was any type of touching. It was asked about the text messages where some of them are saying again that would presume that there had already been a time, and he simply said that it was still just texting for entertainment purposes.
Okay. Now, during your investigation, specifically on the 20th, you and your partner came over and asked him.
The 20th of what?
July.
July?
This would be the 3rd conversation.
Okay.
On the 20th, you asked him, does he ever hang out on the west side, correct?
I haven't reviewed that full interview, but I do remember asking him about the west side, yes.
And he told you...
Objection, Your Honor. They can't admit their defendant's statements. 720 was not admitted.
Do you want to respond, or do you want me to rule?
No. I'll move on. Did you get any information that he had a child on the west side?
He does have a child's mother that lives on the west side, yes.
Okay. So that could be a reason for him to be on the west side, correct?
It could be a possibility.
Okay. But in your interview, he spoke with you freely, correct?
Correct.
He didn't argue with you. I believe you had a search warrant for his DNA, but he didn't argue with that. He freely gave you his DNA, didn't he?
I don't believe I did. I don't think I collected his DNA. Somebody else presented a search warrant for that.
You're right. I'm sorry. You.
this lawyer, he got his certificate in the mail. This nigga got his shit from ICDC. Swear to God, bro. But I'm reading these comments, man. Y'all stupid as fuck.
Weren't the one that, but he didn't argue with anyone. He gave his DNA freely, correct?
Correct.
Okay. He gave you his passcode to his phone, correct?
Sir, he gave everybody his DNA freely.
Correct.
All right.
I'm so sorry, but
Now you said you said that you searched the 7
all
Island
of Detroit got the
correct?
nigga DNA.
Yes.
And you mentioned that this was a former golf course. Now it's abandoned, correct?
Yes.
And there is a parking structure across the street, correct?
Well, parking lot.
A parking lot, thank you.
Yes.
And this abuts the Rouge River, correct?
Yes.
There's also
Like he was gonna
residential
say
streets
no.
over there, correct?
Correct.
Shiawassee over there, correct?
Yes.
Appleton, Pembroke, Vassar, those are all residential streets, correct?
Yes.
And those are all in the same area, correct?
Correct.
And I think you mentioned Angel, but her last name is Leonard. Angel Leonard, correct?
Yes.
And Angel Leonard lives at 13362 Wilshire Street, correct?
Yes.
That's her home, correct?
That's where her and Jarvis live, yes.
Jarvis lives there, correct?
Yes.
And you mentioned Najin, is it Najin Rushing?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Rushing stays at 4 Alexandrian Street, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So on the 9th, you had information that he was both at the both at the Wilshire address at some point, correct?
Yes.
And he was at the Alexandrian address, correct?
Correct.
And did you get any information from any of these witnesses that that was not true?
That what was not true.
That he was at those addresses?
Did I get any information that he was not at the addresses? I believe when we talked to Najin, she couldn't remember if he was, she didn't acknowledge seeing him that night.
Okay. And would you agree, how do I say this? Mr. Butts is a complicated life, correct?
Mr. Butts created a complicated.
How the fuck she supposed to know how he lived his life? You dumbass lawyer, you. Bro.
Yes.
He has multiple girlfriends, correct?
Correct.
He is juggling girlfriend 1 through I don't know how many, correct?
Yes.
And he does things to juggle all these girlfriends, correct? He may lie to his girlfriend about someone else, correct? He may park around the block so that another girlfriend can't see her car. He may borrow a car. All that true? Is that fair?
It's fair.
Lying is not a crime, is it? Or lying to a girlfriend is not a crime, is it?
Well, lying to a girlfriend is not a crime, no.
Okay. And you spend a lot of time talking about text messages on the record. All right? Can I take you back to some of those text messages? Do you still have them with you?
I do.
Okay. Let's go back to September 26th
Of which year?
of 2023.
September 26th?
Right.
Starting at what time?
He don't know, ma'am.
Okay.
It's line number 12.
Line 1293.
I don't have numbers like that
You
on
don't
my page. Can you just tell me a time to the second?
Is that 1433?
The 1433 even?
Yes.
Yes.
So, and that text message, that's the one where she texted about her period not coming, right?
Yes.
And she texted that she was going to the doctor the next day, correct?
Correct.
And a little bit farther down, at 1457, does she also text him that I might not be pregnant, it might be from stress?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can we look at November 27th?
He said that shit like that was a drop the mic moment. Like, nigga, you made her review that text for what? Nigga, what? What did that solve? What does that say? It still show that they was fucking. You big dummy. Yo, I don't understand how these niggas pass the bar. He cheated. I swear to God, he cheated. He paid for that shit.
You have that?
From
Let me find
from November 27th?
November
He got-
27th of 2023.
He was appointed. I promise you he was. He did not pay for this man. He ain't paid for this man. This man was absolutely free of charge.
Okay.
I promise you.
What time?
It is 22:28.
Okay.
This is where she texts Mr. Butts that
Wait for it.
she is doing the gym with the baby's car, correct?
Yes.
Now, the very next day, November 28th, you have that?
Yes.
At 21:43, thank you.
Which one?
She texts Jarvis Butts, it healed, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Butts doesn't respond to any of these messages, does he?
Because she pregnant now, sir. What the fuck you think he gonna say? We about to be a family? When? After Angela, Jaleesa, Veronica, Renee. Like, what the fuck? Yo, this man, I can't believe this shit.
He doesn't respond until the next couple of days, the next day.
Oh. Then in December, a couple of weeks later, Mr. Butts does some Google searches. So this is the Google search, correct?
December 10th.
December 9th through 11th?
10th, yes.
So he does searches for abortion, Planned Parenthood sites, correct?
Yes.
He does searches for over-the-counter abortion pill, correct?
Yes.
And we all agree that Mr. Butts has many girlfriends, right?
Correct.
Sir, we can figure this out easily. Let's go pull up the other girl phones and see if they was pregnant. Now, it's only one girl right now that he was giving thing to that was saying she was pregnant. And that was Nazyiah. Now, what in the living fuck is this man trying to say? He's trying to insinuate that he was doing those searches for all of the rest of them. Now, let's hope he don't leave out the antifreeze search, because that was part of it too.
There may be some that we don't know about. Fair?
Possibly.
Okay.
In that same row of searches,
So-
he Googled red antifreeze.
Any testimony that says that these text messages, these website searches were regarding Nazyiah Harris would be speculation, right?
I don't believe I said they were regarding Nazyiah. I just read what he had been searching on the internet.
Fair enough, but we can't say who they're regarding, correct?
Correct.
Y'all, look at look at the judge. The judge is me right now. Look at the judge.
So
Maddie.
you testified that you found some guns, correct?
Correct.
You said you found a long gun, I believe, at 13362 Wilshire,
Look at Lady Bell.
Angel Leonard's house.
Yes.
Okay. And did you find that gun was registered to her?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you found a couple of other guns, correct?
Correct.
Were those guns operable?
I don't test fire the weapons.
Okay. So I take
I would
those.
have to look at the laboratory report to see if they test fired them.
Okay. Do you know if any of those guns were tested for DNA?
I believe they would have been swabbed, but I don't know if those swabs were submitted.
Okay. You also testified that you found several knives in one of the vehicles, correct?
Correct.
All right. Did you test the knives? I know you tested at least one knife for
Yes.
for DNA. Did you test the other knives for DNA?
The other knives were not tested, no.
Okay. And did you test any of the knives for blood?
I believe we had all the knives swabbed, and then nothing came back leading anything to be blood, but we submitted it on the knife that was up near the driver's seat. The other knives, one was like a butter knife. Another one was like a smaller kitchen knife, but it was like under the back seat. It looked old and crusty, like it hadn't been up there. So the knife that was at the closest access that looked to be not stored in the truck for a very long time, as opposed to the other ones, were the ones that we had swabbed. and
Okay.
tested. And then additionally, they were tested with Blue Star. So the knife that reacted to anything that maybe Blue Star reacted to, that was specific why that knife was submitted.
Okay. So there was no blood found on that knife, correct?
Correct.
So there was testimony about a black hoodie that was found, correct?
Yes.
Did you personally examine this hoodie?
I did not touch it. It was there. I was there as I observed it being opened up by the evidence technician who was collecting it, as well as re-going through the photos while we were there and then after.
All right. So
That's what's up, the real K Millie.
the hoodie looked weathered, did it not?
It was wet.
It was wet. There were spider webs in it, correct?
I didn't open it to manipulate it, so if there was something that maybe the evidence tech testified to seeing, I wasn't right there as it was being opened, so I couldn't answer. I did not see a spider web. I can't say that there was not one.
Okay. Did you see any other debris on this hoodie?
So again, the hoodie is wet.
Okay.
A lot of times when articles of clothing are wet, it's hard to distinguish whether there's any other type of stains on there. We're not out there manipulating clothing like that. We preserve it the best that we can. That way, if there is something, it can be properly examined inside a laboratory where I'm not adding more possible contamination to anything.
Okay. But it's fair to say that it's speculation on how the holes would have gotten into it, correct?
Well, I said I don't know how those holes got there.
Okay. Now, we've heard that the hoodie was tested for genetic material, correct?
For DNA?
Yes.
Yes.
Was it tested for gunshot residue?
No.
Okay. You also found a pair of red and black shoes, gym shoes, correct?
Yes.
Were they tested for DNA?
No.
Okay.
Okay, why the fuck not? Why they not doing that? I thought they was tested. Ain't that what we seen? They weren't tested. I mean, why wouldn't they be tested? Huh? Why in the fuck wouldn't that be tested? Why isn't this shit not getting swabbed?
And you seized several cars in this investigation, correct?
Throughout the investigation, yes.
Okay. You had a cadaver dog pass through the cars, correct?
Correct.
Did the cadaver dog give you a hit on any car?
No.
Okay. Just a moment. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yes, Judge. Please. Sergeant Jones, that text back on November 27, 2023, where Nazyiah replies, "It healed." You can't say what that's about, can you?
Correct.
And defense asked you about some guns that were found and that there was a long gun registered to Angel. But it's true that Mr. Butts can't have any guns around him in his house, can he?
Correct.
Regardless of who they're registered to.
Correct.
Eat her ass. Eat their
And
ass
as
up.
for the guns, you were asked whether or not they were operable. There weren't tests performed on these guns, were there?
Not that I believe, no.
Okay. And tell me, why is it that there wasn't an emphasis put on doing like test shots for a gun?
The original, when we got the guns, I believe that the priority was to swab for DNA. Is we do that before we start sending them to get test fired and contaminating anything. The guns were swabbed, all the evidence that was collected, and then the items that I believe, after talking with lab specialists and looking at the different things that would be the most successful to coming back and giving me the answers on whether that was Nazyiah's hoodie or not, those were the items that were submitted. Once that hoodie came back that it was hers, there was no need for me to test the shoes that I had a picture of her wearing, because I knew that that hoodie was going to be showing that that was her belongings.
Now, as it relates to guns specifically, if you're trying to connect a gun to a homicide, would you need something to compare it to?
Yes,
Okay, and was there was no body found in this case, that's correct?
correct. You would either need the projectile that you may recover or find at a scene, or the actual spent casing.
And there was none of that able to be found, correct?
Correct.
And just generally, as just a common person with common knowledge, spider webs can be formed fairly quickly depending on the spider. Is that fair to say?
Yes, there's times I come in the morning and there's already one on my car.
And that wouldn't be there the night before?
Correct.
Okay.
I know that. Me too.
Now, in your experience, does Michigan State Police even test for gunshot residue?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And you were also asked about a cadaver dog. You've used cadaver dogs in your history, in your police work?
For 11 years, yes.
Okay. Now, a cadaver dog would only hit if they're in a vehicle if there was a dead body in that vehicle. Is that correct?
They'll hit on blood, or if there was like biological from somebody that's deceased, something.
So if a body was in a car that was not yet deceased, that cadaver dog presumably would not hit.
Correct.
Facts. Tear this nigga milk dud up with everything he was trying to suggest.
And you got this investigation in February around the 14th or 15th?
Yes.
Okay, and when was that knife found in Mr. Butt's car?
After we impounded the car, then they did the inventory, the evidence search. It would have been probably a week or so later, and then it's reviewed when I get to that, and then submitted.
Okay, so that would have put almost a month and a half, almost 2 months away from January 9th, 2024.
Yes.
Nothing further, Judge.
Yeah, can I ask a couple follow-up questions?
Yes.
Nigga, if you don't sit down, waterhead, man.
So if a gun was used in a homicide, maybe not as a shooting, maybe as just a blunt force instrument, or if it was a close range shot, couldn't blood or skin cells be on the gun?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Ms. Quickly, any last questions?
No, Judge, thank you.
Yes, Dr. Young, you are done testifying.
Thank you.
Any more witnesses?
No, Judge. At this time, the people would like.
Any defense witnesses?
No witnesses, Your Honor.
Let's come back at 3 o'clock for bind-up argument.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sergeant O'Rourke's time that she was seen was Nazyiah's birthday, which is in Cordell.
Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you. And before I get to the real issue on the homicide charge, I'm going to take care of a few preliminary matters. It is the people's intent to increase count 3, which is currently criminal sexual conduct 2nd degree, to criminal sexual conduct 1st degree, person under 13, defendant 17 years of age or older. We have the defendant's birthday on the record, and that would be based on the testimony of the one minor witness that testified, as well as Cordell Wright's testimony. The minor witness testified that it happened at the old shop, and when Ms. Ripley was asking questions, she identified that as being the location. Cordell Wright testified back in November that they didn't move from that shop, which was at East Warren and Neff in the city of Detroit, until May or June, based on Nazyiah's birthday, which is in her medical records. At that time, she would have been 12 years old, and the minor witness testified clearly describing an act of penetration, specifically penis to anal opening. With respect,
I think we just figured out what she mean when she said it healed.
to the criminal sexual, child sexually abusive activity, that would be based on the text messages as well as the minor's testimony as well. Combining those two things satisfies the elements of those charges. However, going to count 1 in murder in the first degree premeditated, I would like to go through and put some of the pieces together.
I don't remember, hold on for a second. I don't remember listening to no minor. Where was the minor at? Because ain't that what he just said? Hold on one second, y'all.
That would be based on the testimony of the one minor witness that testified, as well as Cordell Wright's testimony. The minor witness testified that it happened at the old shop, and when Miss Ripley was asking questions, she identified that as being the location. Cordell Wright testified back in November that they didn't move from that shop, which was at East Warren and Neff in the city of Detroit, until May or June, based on Nazyiah's birthday, which is in her medical records. At that time, she would have been 12 years old, and the minor witness testified clearly describing an act of penetration, specifically penis to anal opening. With respect to the criminal sexual, child sexually abusive activity, that would be based on the text messages as well as the minor's.
No, I'm not saying show her testimony. I thought from the way that they were saying it that they had her voice, because I know they weren't going to show her
testimony as well. Combining those two things satisfies the elements of those charges. However, going to count 1 in murder in the first degree premeditated, I would like to go through and put some of the pieces together. And we are sitting here today, or standing here today in court on January 9th, 2025, which is 1 year, almost to the minute, the last time Nazyiah was seen on a camera in the city of Detroit, which is on the screen now. The last time that she was seen was on January 9th, 2024 at 2:56, getting off of the bus at January 9th.
Look how you looking up at the picture. Look how you looking up at the screen now. Bitch ass.
The last time that she was seen was on January 9th, 2024 at 2:56, getting off of the bus at 3 Mile Drive in Cornwall and walking down Bedford. She was walking towards what she didn't know at the time would be Jarvis Butts and her ultimate murder by him. We take that moment in time and then go to Cordell Wright's testimony where he testified that they picked Nazyiah up on their way back to their shop at 9000 Connor, and they proceeded with her to that location. We have Jarvis Butts' sister's testimony, Tijuana Butts, who did say that she saw a young girl with a very descriptive and distinct jacket getting in and out of that car, the white Cadillac Escalade. That would have been before Jarvis, Cordell, and Nazyiah departed for Ypsilanti. We have Sergeant O'Rourke's testimony as to his cell phone locations based on cell tower information and the historical call detail records, which placed them consistent going out to Ypsilanti. And then we have Cordell's testimony getting them back to the shop. Talacia Moore also testified to seeing Nazyiah in Ypsilanti with Cordell and Jarvis. Cordell, as we know, testified that he had to get back to his house based on his tether hours by 9 p.m. And that is the last time that anyone who is not Jarvis Butts would see Nazyiah Harris alive.
What's the spelling to the Bedford? He said Bedford or Balfour? Balfour Street.
From the shop, we proceed out to the Park Crest Inn, where Jarvis Butts checked into a hotel at 9:30 p.m. And Sergeant O'Rourke's testimony corroborates this, placing his phone in the area of that 20,000 Harper address at around midnight till early in the next morning on the 10th, using the data that you see on the screen in those times. Recapping January 9th, this is the last time that we have any sort of communication from Nazyiah. There was, if you look at those messages that Sergeant Jones went through and read, just between Nazyiah and Jarvis, there was consistent and constant communication up until January 9th. There's also no messages from Jarvis after Nazyiah goes missing on the 9th looking for her, seeing where she is, trying to find her, trying to help, as anyone should do at that time, her family locate her. There's no messages to her phone, to that Text Now account from Jarvis Butts' phone. Her legal guardian and grandmother, Annette Harris, has not seen any social media posts. The OIC of the case, Sergeant Jones, has not seen anything for a total of 1 year now. The Lieutenant George Harris, who was involved in the investigation in the first month, didn't see anything that he saw from social media or Text Now after the 9th. Jarvis Butts on the 9th, we know, borrowed Latricia Johnson's car overnight, which was unusual. He borrowed that from, and then again borrowed it on the 10th or 11th. We know that Nazyiah's glasses were found in that car sometime after the 10th or 11th when Latricia Johnson was at that shop and Jarvis Butts snatches them out of her hand. From the Park Crest Inn and from January 9th, we go out to 7 Mile and Burke. This is by far the most important location in this case because we know that the defendant spent from 11:40 p.m. on the 10th to 1:34 a.m., nearly 2 hours in that area, in that wooded area where the Rouge River runs through. And to give, this is from the slideshow of the scene photos that were taken at 7 Mile and Burke. This is the area where it's the people's theory Jarvis Butts did at least one of two things. Either killed Nazyiah at 7 Mile and Burke, but at the very least dumped her body in this location.
Boy, and that's where we was at yesterday. I told you, y'all, she was on 7 Mile, my nigga, and they need to pay us. We already figured this out.
We know this because of the evidence that was found there, specifically the black hoodie, which you see in this photo here.
We did that shit yesterday.
As well as the pink bodysuit and the shoes that we confirmed, or that are hers, based on the picture that the OIC received from her brother. And those items were collected. The black hoodie and pink jumpsuit were tested. And importantly, Rion Green testified as to which swabs were which. This analysis here and hypothesis and result pertains to the right shoulder swab on Nazyiah Harris's black hoodie that she took that picture in when she was in school on January 9th. The one, importantly, that Annette Harris testified was in good condition when Nazyiah left. We will get to pictures of that, but this shows that Nazyiah Harris's DNA is there as well as Jarvis. And importantly, this is one of the stain swabs that was positive not just for blood, but human blood based on the hemotrace results. In the next one, we have, this pertains to not the stain swabs, but the regular swab that Rion Green testified was a wearer ID swab.
Look at the police officer. He want to hit that nigga in the back of the head too. But let me tell you something right now, my nigga. Let me tell you something right now. Do you understand what I'm saying? My nigga Kyle is cooking. You feel me?
Importantly here, Jarvis Butts' DNA from that swab that would have been taken around the neck of that sweater or the end of the arms of that sweater is there with very strong support. And of course, Nazyiah's DNA is there as well. And when we look at that sweater, specifically through the PowerPoint photos that Rion Green took and put together, we can see that there is a lot of markings on this. If the court looks closely on this, and I did, there are 15 phenopositive stain markings on this sweater. This is just the front of that sweater. And of course, the court paid attention and saw the markings or the damage to the hood, that it is the people's theory would have been stab wounds or something to that effect that happened when Jarvis Butts murdered Nazyiah Harris.
We about to start our own detective agency.
And it goes to the premeditation element as well as everything he did before at Jarvis Butts' actions, specifically what he did to attempt to conceal or cover up his role in the murder of Nazyiah Harris. First, we have the glasses that he made sure he grabbed directly from Latricia Johnson's hands when shown, that are consistent with the glasses she had in the photo from the 9th when she...
For real, Jarvis. Take the girl over to the house and show him the glasses your son got on. Show him, Jarvis.
He was in school.
Fucking lying there, boy.
We had the jail call to Cordell Wright to get that phone of his out of Miss Davis's car and
We see why you wanted us to get that phone, boy. Because you a nasty motherfucker. You, boy. You nasty.
into someone else's possession, which he testified he tried to do, but was ultimately unsuccessful. And then Sergeant Jones testified that they ultimately did recover that phone from Miss Davis's car. There's the phone call to Latricia Johnson, which was played when she was testifying, saying to get anything he touched clean, to clean anything he touched, to get anything, don't drive her car, drive his mom's car, which is important because when you combine her testimony of when Jarvis Butts took her car, those 2 times on the 9th and 10th, and then either the next day or that same day, it's important because that car is the car that he transported Nazyiah Harris out to 7 Mile and Bird to either dump her body or to murder and then dump her body there.
We figured that part out too. Hey, listen, at this point, they should give us a stipend. We ain't even in the city of Detroit and we figured this shit out, bro. Let's get on these maps and go find Nazyiah, because I think we can do it.
And we can go through all of the lies that Jarvis Butts told any detective or any officer that he testified to, but in highlighting those, he denies to Detective Mays that he was with Nazyiah at all or had talked to Nazyiah at all on the 9th, denies ever picking her up, denies to, even when confronted with the January 9th messages, he said that it wasn't him initially. Obviously, we heard in the subsequent interviews, specifically on June 1st with the OIC, he came off of that. He told Shannon Harris that Nazyiah texted him on the 9th. She says that he never did that. And we have some of their messages in the record as well. He denies going to a hotel and denies going to a hotel with Nazyiah Harris and denies having any sort of sexual relationship with Nazyiah, even though the text now messages completely prove that that is an absolute lie.
Kyle said completely.
We also have his motive. We know from Sergeant Jones that he was going to be going into custody supposedly on January 9th for until roughly December, I believe, is what Sergeant Jones testified.
January 7th, I thought it was, but I mean, yeah, he was going to go there January 9th, but it got postponed to the 7th. Yeah, this nigga Kyle cooking.
We know that that date was adjourned because he said in his interview that he had a legal issue. He said it was out in Clinton Township, but I submit to this court that that's not the legal issue he was talking about. He was talking about the legal issue he would have had if Nazyiah had been left alive. He had to make sure that when he was in custody that she was not going to give birth to any child of his.
Facts.
That's his motive in this case. That's why that's January 9th. Sentencing date was adjourned to February 7th so he could take care of that potential legal issue. He was being told consistently by Nazyiah throughout the months that she might be pregnant, and then on 11/27, she says to him that it's hard to do this gym shit with this baby. Less than a week or 2 weeks later, he's searching on Google how to abort a baby, how to not just abort a baby or get an abortion, but how to do it at home, how to get rid of that without any medical professional or any responsible mandated reporter knowing about it. We clearly have that motive. And obviously, Judge, one of the big issues in this case is proving that Nazyiah Harris is dead without having a body. On January 9th, she vanished off the face of the earth.
Facts.
There is absolutely no evidence after the 9th that she...
Let me explain to you the dead giveaway. When you look at the fact of the matter that them two, Nazyiah and this man, had been speaking nonstop for the last year, my nigga, if she wasn't gonna call nobody else, it was gonna be your stinking ass. You know what I mean? Like, dead serious. And for this little girl not to say nothing after going through all of the stuff that she went through, boy, you know you done did something. Tell them folks where that girl is.
She was alive.
Straight
that
up.
she was sending messages to anyone. Her, again, legal guardian had not seen her since the 9th.
He wasn't responding to her for a month and she was still texting.
Friends, family have seen her since the 9th. There's no social media post reviewed by any officer to this day that would indicate she was alive. There's no messages, no further messages on text now after the 9th. There is a full and complete stop of any activity that would indicate she was alive. And Judge, I submit to this court that if that were the evidence that we had at this point, that would be enough at this point for a probable cause determination to show that she is in fact deceased today. However, there is more than that. Her hoodie found at 7 Mile and Berg, which we just saw a photo of, has Jarvis Butts' DNA on it and Nazyiah Harris's DNA on it, and it is covered in blood, indicating that something traumatic happened to her. And all the other evidence shows that something traumatic happened to her at the hands of Jarvis Butts. And then we go back to his motive. Was told by Nazyiah that she was pregnant, searched all of the home abortion procedures, and was going to go into the Wayne County Jail until December, which we just passed, of 2024. Judge, I submit to this court that the evidence that you have heard over the last 4 days proves not only that Nazyiah Harris is currently deceased, but also that she was murdered.
I just want to say to everybody in this chat, I just don't think that some people should commit crimes. So y'all don't commit no crimes. Because listen, these closing arguments posted today. We was on this motherfucking stream last night. And we done did verbatim what these folks said. So let me just tell y'all motherfuckers something. If we, the people, could come over here and figure this shit out, you best believe them folks who got experience gonna do. So y'all don't be committing no crimes, my nigga, because y'all looking dumb as a motherfucker right now, my nigga. We been saying all this shit last night. I'm over here sitting here trying to think of something new. But nigga, we had nailed all that shit. We been knew that Nazyiah was transported in the motherfucking Nissan Sentra. Like, we figured all this shit out. Like, I swear to God, I ain't even trying to be funny, but I'm just saying. So, y'all don't commit no crimes, because shit, y'all gonna get caught.
By the defendant, who had plenty of motive to do so, had plenty of opportunity
We
to do so.
said everything Kyle said. I put my hand to God.
And I will note that the defendant in this case, Jarvis Butts, does not get a break because he successfully hid her body. The evidence to a probable cause determination, which the question
Man,
is,
Drip said, fuck that mask
dead,
up. We finna
and
go find
did the
Nazyiah.
defendant probably do that? Both questions are answered with a yes,
Let us
based
go
on
on
all
7
of
Mile
the
and
evidence
Berg.
that you have seen. I would reserve any further argument for rebuttal. Thank you.
Pretty quick.
Thank you, Judge.
Shit.
I know how well aware
Shit, we ain't
the
going
court
to no
is
jail. We going
that
to
we have a
find
very
Nazyiah.
serious
What the
task
fuck?
here.
We don't go to no jail.
We've been here for 4 days, and at this point, we have to look critically at what we've heard and what we've seen over the last.
Bear with Nate. You know why I love you? Because look, I already got Grandma pulled up. I'm waiting on this to end. Because yes, that's where we finna connect the dots. Where Grandma's house was. I'm finna see how far Grandma's house was from the bus stop. We finna do a street view. We finna go see it. Listen, any woman that got 7 kids or more, we'll be able to tell.
4 days and determine if there's enough
We gonna find our
evidence
address in a
by a
minute.
probable cause standard that Mr. Butts committed
With
premeditated
that
first
street
degree
view,
murder.
you gonna know from the porch.
And if you
On
look
my
critically
soul.
at what the
I'm
evidence
confident.
is and the lack of connection between these pieces of alleged evidence, there is not even by probable cause standard. To bind over on premeditated first degree murder,
Shit.
there has to be sufficient
I'm finna go
facts.
pull up everybody's
or
shit. I know what kind of
evidence
cars
show
they
by a
got.
probable cause
Smoke
standard that each of the elements of premeditated murder in the first degree were committed. First, there's got to be a death. There has to be evidence that the defendant caused the death of the deceased, that some action that he made or did caused that person's death, that there was an intent to kill, that the intent to kill was premeditated, and that it was deliberate. And here there is not enough evidence, even by a probable cause standard, that Jarvis Butts caused the death of Nazyiah Harris. There's been no testimony of any eyewitness stating that they saw Jarvis Butts doing any act that could have caused Nazyiah Harris's death. There's been no testimony of any eyewitness that they saw Jarvis Butts doing anything in preparation of doing something that could have caused her death. And there's been no admission of Mr. Butts to support that element. There's not probable cause to believe that Mr. Butts had an intent to kill Nazyiah Harris, nor that he premeditated her death. There's no evidence of any threats made by Mr. Butts to Nazyiah. There's no evidence of any threats made to a third party that he was going to do something or that he had a problem that he had to take care of. The issue or the statement was he had a legal matter. And Ms. Davis testified that she was aware of an issue that he had in Clinton Township and that she was the one that was driving him around to court.
I wish Blossom.
There's no testimony that he took any specific action in a deliberation to kill her or that in killing her. There's Google searches about legal ways to abort a child, not how to kill somebody or dispose of a body. There's no evidence that he did anything related to the Google searches. There's no receipts of purchases or anything like that. And these text messages were 2 weeks after. They were, I believe, December 9th and 10th, which was, I believe, 2 weeks or 13 days from 11/27/23, which is the text message about gym class. And then there's this kind of cryptic text message in between that says, "It healed."
She was talking about her anal cavity. You know what I mean? He was scared to go ahead and sleep with her that way because she was already saying that she was pregnant. But his perverted ass still needed a minor, okay? She was talking about her butt. What else is she talking about? Fucking Blossom. I wish you and a KFC man to go somewhere.
We don't know what that means, but we don't know what Mr. Butts took that to mean. It doesn't necessarily mean that he believed she was pregnant. There's no evidence of a pregnancy. We have medical records until, I believe it's October of 2023, that don't indicate a pregnancy, that she had been to the doctor in September. When she originally texts or messages Mr. Butts and says she thinks that she's pregnant, there's no evidence of a pregnancy. She went to the...
Is the evidence that it could have been a pregnancy because he bought a Plan B. And then it was also evidence of the last pregnancy test that they took to where it was. So it's evidence that they've been practicing. Lady,
the doctor.
She about to piss me off.
We heard from both her guardian, her grandmother, and her aunt, Shannon Harris. Who
they don't count.
Her. No testimony from either of them that they suspected that she was pregnant, that there was any medical issues that they had to take care of because that would have caused them to think she was pregnant.
We after them next.
An insinuation, well, was she wearing baggy clothing? Was she wearing...
Yeah, she was pregnant. She was pregnant.
Bigger clothing. There was no testimony that they had to go out and buy new clothes for her because her clothes didn't fit or that she started wearing baggy clothing. She was wearing denim pants on the day that she disappeared, and there's no testimony that those were not pants that they had recently bought because she didn't fit into the clothing that she previously had. There's no evidence of any kind of plan. There's no messaging between Mr. Butts and Ms. Harris that indicates an escalation of animosity between the two of them. In fact, he essentially kind of starts to disengage. And so there's no written evidence that he had any kind of plan or any animosity toward her at that point. Our submission would be that he understood at that point that she wasn't pregnant and was disengaging.
Disengaging what, ma'am? Because right now what it seems like to me is that you're saying your client did have a relationship with her and that he was communicating with her. Sometimes if you talk, it fucks you up. So you said he read, hold on, let's listen to it again. Because sometimes people tear their own ass up.
So there's no written evidence that he had any kind of plan or any animosity toward her at that point. Our submission would be that he understood at that point that she wasn't pregnant and was disengaging.
Okay, so see what she said? She said at that point, he said, hey, she ain't with a child, so we disengaging. But your client said that he never talked to Nazyiah. He thought it was Shannon. So, ma'am, you just got your client hung.
Let's talk about what we did see. So we know that Nazyiah got on her school bus around 2:45 on the 9th. She got off the bus a few minutes later, and then she was seen walking up Bedford. She was wearing at that point light colored blue jeans, a black hoodie, and then a colorful coat with fur around the hood. there's some insinuation that somehow there was a plan that she would meet up with Mr. Butts. But the testimony of Mr. Wright was that they were driving around that afternoon back and forth to various auto parts stores, and I believe that they in fact had to go back to one kind of unplanned because they either missed something or there was an issue. And so to say that somehow
Ma'am, don't stop there. He also said after they did the back and forth, he turned to the right and Jarvis said, "There go Nazyiah." Man, is y'all serious? Yo, Jarvis, you're doomed. They ain't even try at all. They ain't try at all, buddy.
Mr. Butts would have known that she would have been on that street at that specific time and that they would have been there at that specific time is quite a leap, considering they didn't know where they were going to be when, because they were doing all this driving around back and forth to various stores.
Okay, well, while y'all was driving around to various stores, did he pick her up? Because how she wound up in the car to go to Ypsilanti?
Witnesses put Nazyiah in Mr. Butts' auto shop later that afternoon, and then in Ypsilanti with Mr. Butts and Cordell Wright, and Mr. Wright puts her back at the shop later that evening. But then we hear from Sergeant O'Rourke, who did all the cell phone mapping, that at 9 p.m., Mr. Butts was actually at 13662 Wilshire, which is his home, where Angel Leonard lives, and where they have kids. So did Nazyiah go back with him to that?
No, he left her at the shop. Or she might have been, because we all know that Jarvis bring everybody to Wilshire. Hell, his fiance was even in the front of that motherfucker, but she never went in. So that's kind of irrelevant.
That house. And then at 9:30 is when he checks into the Park Crest Motel.
I'm tickled
Now,
as
we
fuck.
don't know who was with him there, but there is no evidence that Nazyiah was ever there. They searched it. They took DNA. They took clippings of various things. They swabbed the shower drain, and there's no evidence that she was ever in that room.
I'm over here crying, y'all.
We did hear testimony that the Park Crest is a known place where Mr. Butts frequents and takes various lady friends for a rendezvous. It's much more possible and plausible that he took somebody, one of his lady friends there, than somebody who he was going to kill, right? He's going to a place where they know him. He's a frequent flyer there.
Man, that's exactly why he'd go there.
And is he going to take somebody there where he would later, before he was going to kill them? That makes no sense. That is not logical.
Ma'am, you and Milk Dud aren't logical.
We heard then that after Mr. Butts left the Park Crest Motel, he
Milk
went
Dud
to
need his nap.
Fort Alexandrine, which is
You saw
Midtown,
these
so
senior
kind of across
activities.
town, and that's where his other girlfriend, Najeen Rushing, lives. So did he take Nazyiah with him there to see Miss Rushing? And he stays there for a while, I think, according to Sergeant O'Rourke's mapping. And then we hear that he is at 7 Mile and Berg on January the 10th at 11:40 p.m. for over an hour. That's almost 24 hours from when he initially, it's beyond 24 hours from when he initially is with Nazyiah.
Okay, at first okay, whatever. How long do you really think is that's about right? That's what I've seen that killers usually do. They usually go back and try to get rid of the evidence. Can you explain to us why he would have been there? Because I used to live there. It ain't number woods over there. So what was he doing? And don't say fishing. Don't say fishing.
Or when he's last with Nazyiah. And so it's illogical to think that he was driving around with Nazyiah, visiting all of his girlfriends, or if he had done something to her previously, that she was in the car with him while he did that. And in fact, they took a cadaver dog around the car and didn't find anything, and they tested the vehicles, all of his vehicles, every car that he drove, for DNA, for any sign that Nazyiah had been in there, and they found nothing.
They found the glasses. They found her glasses. That was in there. You probably forgot though. I'm just helping.
And the call to Miss Johnson asking her to wipe down the Sentra that she used that he had borrowed is kind of.
I definitely feel like that the real K Millie. I definitely feel like that the real. That was one of the first options we chose last night. We said that because he searched red antifreeze and he also worked at a car shop. We kind of felt like maybe he was trying to do some at-home shit and it went left and he panicked. That's a possibility too, but it still don't negate the fact that he did it.
Irrelevant because she testified that she didn't do it. That she did nothing based on what he called to say, and they still didn't. Nothing was found.
The only thing that leads me to feel like it might not have been a mistake and it might have been premeditated is only because of the fact of the matter is, if you're going to be sneaking around with a minor, right? And if that minor brings up that she feels like she's pregnant, he didn't have no sense of urgency even to bring her a plan B after the fact. She was reaching out to this nigga, needing help, like, I think this, I think that. You know what I'm saying? She was asking for a pregnancy test. You know what I'm saying? All types of shit. He had no energy whatsoever to want to just basically terminate the pregnancy. So it says to me in my mind that he already probably was finna do some shit. You know what I mean? He wanted to bone her raw so bad that he already had came there with a plan B for her. That is some sad, sick shit.
We heard about a pink jumpsuit that was found. We didn't hear any testimony that anybody saw Nazyiah wearing this pink jumpsuit.
Ma'am, who are going to see their child's panties and underclothes like that? I mean, shut up.
Not seen wearing it in any video. I don't believe that anybody even identified it as being hers. I don't believe there was any testimony from either Annette Harris or Shannon Harris stating, yes, we recognize that pink jumpsuit. That's something that Nazyiah wears. When did she have it? There was one blood stain on that jumpsuit. And the testimony from the forensic analyst, Rion Green, was that it was such a small stain that she was afraid she would consume it if she did additional testing. She tested it once and couldn't do any follow-up testing or confirmatory testing because she was afraid they were going to consume the sample. There was also no statistically significant support for finding Mr. Butt's DNA on that stain sample from the pink jumpsuit.
It's okay because his stain and her stains was all on the hoodie. So, you know, and honestly speaking, the pink bodysuit is irrelevant. You know what I'm saying? If you want to go there. Because we can, in fact, confirm that the black hoodie had his DNA and her DNA and also blood on that. So we good on that, Blossom. Second of all, the black hoodie, we can also confirm that everybody's seen, including you, because she wearing it on her last photo. So it don't matter about the pink bodysuit. The thing that we can confirm, because you said Annette didn't know she had the pink bodysuit. You said we didn't know. And I don't know what they panties is in this comment section. But what we can confirm is the items that we know is hers had your boy's DNA on it. So the pink bodysuit don't even matter, Blossom. Keep going, though.
And there was no statistically significant probability that his DNA was on the jumpsuit at all, that he had had any contact with the jumpsuit. And they took a lot of swabs of that jumpsuit.
Yeah, they did.
I believe the number was that forensic analyst Anderson testified to, that it was 24 trillion times more likely to have originated from two unrelated unknown contributors than Jarvis Butts.
That's fine.
And we heard about the black hoodie. And that black hoodie was significantly more weathered than the pink jumpsuit. We heard about that from the Border Patrol agent Barnes and other folks that came into contact with that sweatshirt, that it looked like it had been out in the weather much longer. And we don't have an explanation for that, but those appear to be tears in the top of the hood. They don't appear to be stab wounds, and they certainly don't appear to be bullet holes.
And you don't appear to be an expert. So move on, Blossom.
There's weak support for conclusion that Mr. Butts was a contributor to the stain and the swabs.
Yo, we in court, son.
The only real support for any DNA on the black hoodie was on the non-stained part. And there's testimony that Ms. Harris was wearing that hoodie on the 9th, that she was in Mr. Butt's Escalade when he and Mr. Wright picked her up after seeing her walking down Harper, that they were in the car driving up to Ypsilanti. And so the possibility that his DNA got on this non-stained part of the black hoodie is not evidence of premeditated murder in the context of all of the ways that we heard somebody's DNA can get on a piece of clothing.
She didn't prepare. My nigga Kyle had slides and PowerPoints and some more shit. She ain't got nothing, dog. And then Uncle Phil brother over there knocked the fuck out. He knocked the fuck out. He ain't have none of his Geritol.
And I kind of talked about this, but we heard testimony that Mr. Butts drove both a Cadillac Escalade and a Nissan Sentra on January 9th and January 10th. There's a lot of pieces of those cars that were tested. Trunk carpet from various areas in both cars. The driver's floor mat, the driver's seat, the door handle, trunk speakers, the trunk frame. All of those things were swabbed for blood and nothing was found. We heard about a school ID card that belonged to Nazyiah. We heard Valerie Smith testify that she noticed it at some point
She'll be fighting for her life.
Maybe a month or so after Nazyiah was last seen, and that she decided to pick it up 2.5 weeks after she first spotted it. But she was pretty clear that she only noticed it about 2.5 or about 2 weeks before, but that she looked at it every single day. Seemingly, if it had been there before then, she would have noticed it. When any other, they were in, they were
Blossom.
not
Let's close it on out.
Heard.
You lost. Just please be quiet, Blossom. You fucking up. Bad. You know what I mean?
Why Mr. Butt that she was, but we have mishap, 8:30, 9 o'clock on January the 9th. And for that, we're asking the court to deny bind over on count 1, premeditated murder in the first degree.
Rebuttal?
Thank you.
Oh shit.
First, I'm going to start with talking about People v. Fisher that Ms. Quick just referenced. And it is important to note that this case is distinguishable for the following reasons. One, we're talking about a different standard. This was a trial issue, a directed verdict standard, where the court is saying at trial beyond a reasonable doubt. First of all and foremost, it's distinguishable for that reason. Secondly, though, the court in Fisher said in this case there was no physical evidence such as bloodstains or a weapon linking defendant to Joyce's death. In this case, we have bloodstains. We have bloodstains on the hoodie that was found at 7 Mile and Berg, where the defendant spent 2 hours on the night of the 10th going into the 11th. That places them together in the same spot and is very strong evidence that Nazyiah Harris is in fact dead.
My nigga Clay Aiken. That nigga that's singing, boy. That nigga Clay.
Secondly, though, Judge, having dealt with People v. Fisher, Ms. Quick talked about the 9th and 10th, that no one saw the defendant with Nazyiah for that day going into the 10th and into the 11th. However, we heard from one of his significant others or girlfriends that he was secretive, that he didn't want anyone looking at his phone. And we certainly know that he knows how to keep different women and or girls away from each other. For example, I believe it was Shannon Harris that testified that she was familiar with an address of Outer Drive in Belfort, but she had no idea other than the fact that she would pick the defendant up there at different times. We know through other testimony that the defendant was dating someone that lived there.
We also know that Nazyiah in the middle of school said, Auntie, where's Outer Drive in Belfort? Everybody knew about that spot. Shit, I bet you Angel or Angela and Kiki and them did too, so.
And with respect to Ms. Quick saying that Nazyiah never threatened him, never did anything, I'm not sure if this one text message was highlighted by the OIC in this case when she testified, but on November 27th, 2023 at 23 hours and 37 minutes UTC time, Nazyiah said to the defendant, when I see you, I'm a fuck you, tell you regret not answering my calls, which I would submit to this court is a threat. And then just over a month later, she says she goes missing at the hands of the defendant. And Miss Quick also talked about the driving around that Cordell and Jarvis were doing and how it was an unplanned meetup with Nazyiah on the 9th. However, that may be true from Cordell's perspective.
The bald head man leaning over there telling that nigga Jarvis like, you know you done fucked up, don't you?
Because he wouldn't have known what Jarvis's plan was at that time, but clearly on the 9th, send okay if you've seen the message so I can delete your number, and then the defendant's response, okay. And Jarvis was the one driving per Cordell's testimony. Now, Ms. Quick also talked about the knives and how the knives found in the defendant's car of the one that was tested came back negative, and that's true. We cannot dispute that. However, we know that that was more than a month after, giving the defendant plenty of time to clean it. But beyond that, Judge, this case is one where the defendant thought to, and successfully did, hide the body. And it's a common sense inference that if he thought to hide the body, he would also think to get rid of the murder weapon at the same time.
Facts, Kyle. Yeah.
And Judge, Ms. Quick is right. We are talking about a probable cause standard. And as I said, the question is, did the defendant with premeditation probably murder Nazyiah Harris? And I submit to this court that the answer is yes. And circumstantial evidence, as is noted in the jury instructions at trial court or in circuit court, is just as good as direct evidence. And yes, this is a circumstantial case, but when we put those circumstances together, including the physical evidence, the cell phone evidence, which I would equate with physical evidence for purposes of that, as well as the defendant's opportunity and motive, the picture becomes very clear that the defendant, Jarvis Butts, took the life of Nazyiah Harris to protect himself from the eventual discovery of his child that he was going to have with her, or at the very least thought he was going to have with her. I ask this court to bind over as charged with...
Told you said it. I told you, look at the bald head man. You know you done fucked up, don't you?
With her. I ask this court to bind over as charged with the addition or increase of this criminal sexual conduct second degree. Thank you.